Welcome back from spring break. I hope that all of you had a little bit of fun despite all of the rain that happened. I know my family and I, my two boys, we did a lot of fort building, we did a lot of indoor camping, and we had a lot of hot cocoa and popcorn. So we all miss you very, very much at school, and although we can't be together, we love the time that we have to share our lessons with you and to share all of our work. And I really love that I get to have another read aloud with you. So I think you'll like this one. It's one of my favorite stories. So it's called The Big Orange Splot. Mr. Plumbeam lived on a street where all the houses were the same. He liked it that way, and so did everybody else. This is a neat street, they would say. But then one day, a seagull flew over Mr. Plumbeam's house. He was carrying a can of bright orange paint. No one knows why. And he dumped the can, no one knows why, right over Mr. Plumbeam's house. It made a big orange splot on Mr. Plumbeam's house. "Oh, too bad," everybody said. "Mr. Plumbeam will have to paint his house again." "I suppose I will," said Mr. Plumbeam. But he didn't paint his house right away. He looked at the big orange spot for a long time. Then he went about his business. The neighbors got tired of seeing that big orange spot. Someone said, "Mr. Plumbeam, we wish you'd get around to painting your house." "Okay," said Mr. Plumbeam. So he got some blue paint and some white paint, and that night he got very busy. He painted at night because it was cooler. When the paint was gone, the roof was blue, the walls were white, and the big orange splot was still there. Then he got some more paint. He got red paint, yellow paint, green paint, and purple paint. In the morning, the other people on the street came out of their houses. Their houses were all the same. But Mr. Plumbeam's house was like a rainbow. It was like a jungle. It was like an explosion. There was a big orange spot, and there were little orange spots. There were stripes. There were pictures of elephants and lions and steam shovels. The people said, "Plumbeam has popped his cork, flipped his wig, blown his stack, and dropped his stopper." They went away muttering. That day, Mr. Plumbeam brought carpenter's tools. That night, he built a tower on top of his roof and painted a clock on the tower. The next day, the people said, "Plumbeam has gushed his mush, lost his marbles." They decided it would be better to pretend not to notice. But that very night, Mr. Plumbeam got a truck full of green things. He planted palm trees, thorn bushes, and onions. And in the morning, he brought a hammock and an alligator. When other people came out of their houses, they saw Mr. Plumbeam swinging in a hammock between two palm trees. They saw an alligator lying in the grass. Mr. Plumbeam was drinking lemonade. "Mr. Plumbeam has gone too far. This used to be a neat street." "Plumbeam, what have you done to your house?" the people shouted. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," Mr. Plumbeam said. The people went away. They asked the man who lived next door to Mr. Plumbeam to go and have a talk with him. "Tell him that we all liked his house before he changed it. Tell him that his house has to be the same as ours so we can all have a neat street." The man went to see Mr. Plumbeam that evening. They sat under the palm trees and they drank all the lemonade and talked all night long. Early the next morning, the man went out to get lumber and rope and nails and paint. When the people came out of their houses, they saw a red and yellow ship next door to the house of Mr. Plumbeam. "What have you done to your house?" they shouted at the man. "My house is me, and I am it. My house is where I like to be, and it looks like all my dreams," they said, or said the man who had always loved ships. He's just like Mr. Plumbean, the people said. He's got bees in his bonnet, bells in his belfry, and knots in his noodle. Then, one by one, they all went to see Mr. Plumbean late at night. They would sit under the palm trees and drink lemonade and talk about their dreams. And whenever anyone visited Mr. Plumbean's house the very next day, that person would set about changing their own house to fit their dreams. Whenever a stranger came to the street of Mr. Plumbean and his neighbors, the stranger would say, "This is not a neat street." And the people would say, "Our street is us, and we are it. Our street is where we like to be, and it looks like all our dreams." So boys and girls, I want you to think about what would your house look like if you got to build it and it was made out of who you are and the things that you like and all of your dreams. I drew my own house. It's made out of a book because I love reading and I love being in school and I love teaching students. But also you'll see on my house my love for mountains and hiking and being outdoors. So I would love to see what your house would look like. Imagine you were on Mr. Plumbean's street. Maybe you draw your house, maybe you write about it, but if you do draw a picture, I would love for your family to take a picture of it and to send it to me. I hope everyone is having a great day and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye.